So we have this beautiful pair of binoculars, and I am only going to texture our UV map one side, and we could transfer the UV from one side to the other, or we could just simply delete one side and move it over. I'll show you how to do both. Alright, so I'll press Control 1 to isolate it. Now, I guess the main question I'm going to ask you and maybe even myself is, when we're texturing this, what are the materials going to be? Like, if this particular material is going to be chrome, then I would not group it with this item and this object here. But if this object is going to be like maybe leather and some bits of chrome, then I would combine the two. So is this object here going to be chrome or metal, or is it going to be the same material as this? So I guess that's a question. What do you think it's going to be? Is this outer little edge here going to be metal? Okay, alright, sweet. So it's going to allow me to just select the middle faces here and extract it. So I'll hold Shift, right mouse click and hold, extract faces. Voila. Okay, so that's that. And then I have that piece. I'll press Control 1, Control 1. I'll go to face. And I'll actually hold spacebar, look through my front view. Okay, it's not perfectly straight. I'll hold Shift, go to my left view, press F. Where are you at? There we go. The only reason I'm doing it like this so I can select the faces, I'll press 4. And I could just kind of kill two birds with one stone. Okay. Okay. I'll go back to my perspective and dismiss two faces. Alright. Now I'll take these objects, this shape, and again I'll ask you the same question. Is this going to be a metal piece, or is it also going to be some sort of leather? Metal? Okay, so in this case, this shape is the only thing that's going to be UV mapped. That's going to be, I'm assuming, metal and maybe glass right here. So let me turn off the shape there. Press 4. I'll highlight these faces. Press F to frame in so you can see that I've got those guys selected. And then I'll hold Shift, right mouse click and hold, extract faces, or you can simply go to Edit Mesh, extract faces. Okay. Now glass material should always be thicker than a single face. So modify center pivot. Okay. Delete by type history. And Control E. Give it a little bit of thickness. And then right mouse click and hold, assign new material. I'll go to Arnold, and then there's an AI standard. If you right mouse click on AI standard, it'll go to add to favorites, and then up here they'll say Arnold, and there's your AI standard. And what would make it easier in the future is just to right mouse click and hold, and then you go to assign favorite materials, and there's your AI standard right there. So I'll call this Bino glass. Binocular glass. Right mouse, left mouse click on there, and we can go to, there's frosted glass, and yeah, let's do that. Actually, no, let's just go solid glass, and then we'll work backwards. There we go. And now we go Arnold view. I'll click on the render button. And I don't have any lights in here, so Arnold lights, Skydome light. Okay. So that's the shape, the glass, but we should be able to see through it, like looking at this object. So in this case, we're going to, let me minimize that, move this guy over here, attribute editor. In the attribute editor, we have the shape selected, and we're looking at the poly surface shape. We'll go to Arnold and then turn opaque off. Okay. Alright, so that just allows us to pick up some shadows in there. And it's reflecting the environment right now. So let me add a simple image to this guy. File. And I'll just find something on the server. HDRI, and let's go to Alex's apartment, and that one's fine. Okay. Maybe it might be a little bit too distracting. Right, so that's your glass material. Did you want it to be a little bit foggy? So we go to the Binoculars, and then we change the transmission, and then there is the roughness, extra roughness, and you could see how it's changing the look and feel of the glass. So now it's not like really reflecting the light off of it like it did before. So if I change the extra roughness down, you can see that it's reflecting the light sharper, right? So it's a little bit more frosted. Now, if you want to compare the two, so you can simply go to presets, frosted glass, and then replace, and I'll press 3 on those glass. Right. And I'll press R. Actually, we'll just press 3 on this as well. So that's the frosted glass. And then if I go to presets and then go to glass replace, you can see how it's reflecting the image there. It's actually kind of bending the image as well, the way glass should. Okay, so that's your glass. All right, now I'll just go ahead and close this, stop our render view, and the glass is taken care of. All right, now Control 1, and we'll address this section here. That's going to have your UvMap. So I'll press Control 1, go to UV Editor, and this is what it's telling us that object looks like, which is an issue. I'll click on the checker pattern, and we'll simply go to Edge, and you know what? It's not really a big deal. I'll just select all of these faces, and let's see what the automatic map gives us. Okay, so it kind of split everything up like so, which is quite alright. I'm just going to stitch everything together from here. So I don't need this viewport to help me in this section, or what I'm about to do. So I'll go to shell, I'll click this shell, I'll press E, and I'll rotate it 90 degrees. And I'll go to edge, and I can see at this small section that edge corresponds with it. So I'll go to shell, and then I'll press E, I'll hold J, I'll rotate it, and as you can see, they're not the same size. Alright, so I'll go to UV, I'll take those UVs, I'll hold shift, I'll select that UV, see, 1, 2, 3. These guys, it's like a command. I'm saying, hey, you two, go there, right? So how do I make it go there? Super easy. Well, in your UV toolkit, it says arrange and layout. Actually, I'm sorry, align and snap. All right, under the align and snap, you have these options here. So we're clicking on this one here. All right, and then voila, it moves there. Now I'll move these guys down, and I'll select this one, and I'll tell those guys to go up here. And now I'll take these two, I'll select that one, and tell them to go down and align at that white line. You see? Perfect. All right. So now I'll select this guy, I'll move it here, go to edge. All right, these align. I don't know what's going on.
What'd you do?
I didn't do anything. She's been going back.
Justin, are you being nasty?
I'm not being a nasty pants. I'm just teaching. Okay, and so now we have that, right? And I'll take this shell, move it here, go to edge, voila. Okay. Alright, there we go. Okay. Alright, now that we have that UV shell, I want to double check to make sure that all of the checker patterns are perfect, and they're not. So I'll highlight those UV shells, and then I'm going to press R, scale it wider. So now that we see a perfect square, our textures aren't going to stretch. But if I look closely at that little bit there, I don't know, it actually looks kind of good. But this section here does not look good at all. So I'll scale it a little bit that way. Okay. And then that last section, yeah. I'm feeling this right now.
Have a great day.
Yes, me too. Alright. And then this UV shell here needs to do that. Alright, that's a perfect square. And then I think that guy needs to go like that. Alright, so there are some parts of this pattern that are perfect square, and then other parts that are like squished. So this is how I determine where I need to unsquish a particular area. I look at the edges, so like from these edges on down, it's squished. So I look at in my UV editor those same edges. So I'll take these UVs and I'll scale them like that. I'll move them to the left and the right. I'll take those two UVs and then I'll do that. So now I'm happy with the result, and let's do this. Okay. Now it's time to stitch these bad boys together, and I'll go to shell. I'll move this guy over so that the edges are close. I'll go to right mouse click and hold, go to edge. Those two correspond. If I go to cut and sew, the sew is Shift S, so I'll hold Shift, I'll press S, hold Shift, press S. I'll go here, I'll move this over. I'll go to edge, I'll hold Shift, press S. Now when you're sewing it, try to make sure that the edges are like relatively close together versus like being really far away. Otherwise the texture might stretch. Hold Shift S, hold Shift S, and then there we go. Now right mouse click and hold, go to shell, move this shell in here, press R and scale it up, and voila. Now this was created by doing the automatic, and as you can see, it took me a little bit of time because automatic did not give me the best results. So I'm going to show you another way of doing it by using the cylindrical, and I think that might be a little bit easier. So I will first of all select those faces, edit mesh, extract. I'll click on this guy, Control 1, and as before, I'll select all these faces. But now I'm going to go to create and then go to cylindrical. Alright, so the cylindrical is doing this really weird thing. Alright, so to understand cylindrical, it's like wrapping a texture around a Pepsi can or something. We have this really funky shell, or this shape, and I'm trying to get this shape that you could see around the same width of this object. And there's like a gray circle. So again, we want to wrap this gray circle around our object. So there's a little bit of a T right there. If I click on it, it brings up my transform tools. If I click on the light blue line, now I have access to my rotates. So I'm going to rotate it that way. And as you can see, as I rotate it that way, look what happens in my UV editor. Right? It kind of rotates and follows the same thing. Okay. So now, if I go back to that T, I can click on this red line and then wrap it all the way around. And go to object mode. And this is what we get. It's a little funky, but let's see what happens. Alright, so that's my texture. If I press R, I can scale it this way. Press E, rotate it like this. And then next thing I want to do is select all of those UVs at the top. Snap align, take these guys, snap align it this way. Select these guys and then snap align it bottom. And then take these guys and align it to the left. You see? So now these rows are going to be perfectly aligned. I'll press G to repeat the previous command, just so I don't have any funky UVs. Alright, select these guys. Is there an easier way to do this? Not really. That's why I think so many people either fall in love with it, fall out of love with it, realize it's the only thing that they can do to create their own work, and so they just do a mediocre job at it. But nonetheless, if you understand how to UV map, then texturing becomes easier. You don't have to pay someone to do this part for you, and you're not waiting forever to get back a model. And then automatic just sometimes is a lazy way of doing it, but as you've seen earlier, can give you pretty decent results if you understand the basics. So, all right, now, again, you could see that there are some parts of this object that are perfect squares, some parts that are not so perfect, and we're kind of like in the same place as before. But we have a different looking mesh. I'm going to try something different now. If I take this mesh and then go to create automatic, again, it breaks it up into these small pieces. So why is that? I don't know. I'm going to highlight all the vertices, go to edit mesh, merge, and see what happens now when I do an automatic. Create automatic. Alright, so it still likes to break it up. Here, you're going to have to manually take UVs, move them to the left to form, to create that checker pattern. So you can, I guess, pick your method. I don't want to say poison, right? Well, I just did, but I don't think it's poisonous. I think this is good for your soul. Right. A little time consuming, but that's pretty much the process. And you're probably wondering, why don't I just like the whole entire thing and scale it? Because there are sections of this that are perfect, and there are sections that aren't so perfect. So I'll select this side, and I'll kind of select two at a time, and then get a checker pattern. It's like these guys. Make sure that checker pattern in there is fine. And you can see from here to here, yeah, it's a little bit of work, but when you get it accomplished, then you know you feel like a champion. So I'm not going to stretch all of them out. I think after working on this side and this side, I think the automatic map and then sewing them together was probably the best option of the two. The next step is I'll do the smaller one. If this is going to be a metal material, I'm not going to UV map it. But if it's not going to be a metal material, I'm not going to UV map it. I'll actually do a cylindrical mapping on it. I'll take that rounded section because it's already round. I'm not going to UV map it. I'll select those faces and then I'll do a cylindrical map. And like before, I'll select that little red T. Click the light blue circle. Rotate this gray, like ghostly pattern until it wraps around the shape. I'll click on the T again, and now I'll click on that green and I'll stretch it out. And you can kind of see what's going on here in my UV editor. And I'll press R. I'll scale it that way so I get perfect. I'll press W, move it over here. So there's my somewhat perfect pattern. I'll look at the front of that shape. Where are you at? Control 1. And I can see that the checker pattern is much larger here than it is here. So I'll scale this up until they look about the same. I'll highlight both shells and go to Modify Layout. There you go. And then last but not least, I'll select this guy. I'll press F in my UV editor, Control 1 here. I'll select all of the faces that, actually, you know what, let's try an automatic. Let's see how that works for us. Object mode, create automatic. Not ideal. Let's select all of these faces. I'll do this. So I'm selecting all the faces in the front and the back. And make sure that I don't have the ones on the inside selected or the ones on the outside. If I press, let's see here. Let's look underneath here. Make sure I have everything selected. All right, perfect. And then I'll go to Create Planar Map Option Box. And because it's at this like really weird funky angle, I'm make sure my camera is aligned to it and go to Camera, Project. And then here's our shape. I'll press R and scale it like this. Oops, but I forgot to select that face. So again, I'll make sure my camera is aligned to it because it is at a funky angle. Create Planar Option Box. I'll set it to Camera Project. I'll press W in here. I'll press R and scale it up. Go to Shell, and now I have both those guys. And then I'll go to Face, these little bits, and Create Automatic. I'll press R and make sure that the size of those are relatively the same. Highlight all of those guys, modify layout, and there you go. So that's pretty much everything on how to texture this, and I'm pretty sure that this is also going to be glass. So it's the same process as we did before, extracting it, extruding it, assigning material, and yeah. So that's the end of that tutorial.